A New Jersey bombing suspect, Ahmed Rahami, appeared in court yesterday for the first time to face terrorism charges. Rahami was arraigned last month on charges related to the attempted murder of police officers who captured him in Linden, New Jersey back on September 19th, you remember. He intends to plead not guilty. Joining us right now, Fox News national security analyst, member of Donald Trump's National Security Advisory Committee, KT McFarland. KT, good to see you.
Great to be with you.
Well, this as President-elect Donald Trump begins his transition into the White House, looking to fill some key national security posts. First, a word on Rahami. What are your thoughts?
You know, terrorism and political correctness don't go together, and that's the bottom line here, is that we are going to see an increased terrorist threat in the homeland, and until we drop the political correctness and start taking advantage of the new metadata analytics ability we have to spot people who are going to be terrorists, spot them quickly afterwards, we're never going to get ahead of it. And the example that everybody should pay attention to is Europe. Open borders, multiculturalism, gut the defense and intelligence budgets for a generation, and what do you have? A terrorist incident in every major capital once a week.
Wow, but you think Donald Trump will do that? You think he will drop the political correctness?
Absolutely. You have any doubt about that? He'll definitely drop political correctness, and he'll do whatever it takes. And he'll also protect the military and the arms and the police.
But you do see at least a softening of tone. There was a report that on the Trump website that they've removed when they were talking about banning Muslims coming into this country.
I saw that.
That's been taken off, taken out of the website. So there's definitely, you see a campaign now moving into a presidency.
But you see Donald Trump moving into a presidency. I mean, to see what he did yesterday when he was in the Oval Office with President Obama, he looked like he belonged there. And I think that what you've seen...
He sure does now.
He sure does now. And you don't have any significant... This is the biggest political earthquake in 200 years. Donald Trump is going into the White House as the only president since George Washington who doesn't owe anything to anybody.
Wow.
And he has just taken down the political establishment, the governing elites, the mainstream media, the two biggest political machines that have dominated American politics for over a generation. And it's Donald Trump, and who does he represent? The American people.
One of the things that's interesting about military strategy is that one of the first steps is basically striking some fear into the hearts and minds of the enemy. And in this entire election, we've heard, do you want Donald Trump to have the nuclear codes? Well, guess what? Russia, China, North Korea, now he's got the nuclear codes, right?
Well, and also, I mean, it's funny to watch what he's done. So sometimes he'll throw a lob out there and people immediately react, like NATO. He said, well, you know, these guys aren't paying their fair share. And so the immediate reaction was, how dare he say this? This is the NATO alliance. We can't even possibly come up. And you know what happened within a couple of days? The experts were saying, well, you know, he actually has a point. They're not paying their fair share.
They actually looked at it.
And they looked, and then what happened after that? The Germans increased their defense budget.
Incredible. Well, would you join Donald Trump's administration? Are you expecting to have a role?
Well, look, you know, it's not about me. It's about him, and it's about what he's done. And I must say, from the very beginning, I've been supportive of his policies. I think we have lost wars in the Middle East that we should never have lost. I think we have had a policy towards China where we have said we don't pick, Hillary said we don't pick a fight with our banker, we can't be tough. And with Russia, the reset is just simply to the point where we now have a new Cold War. So yes, I think every one of those things makes sense. And I tell you, anybody be honored to serve in this revolution.
Yeah, it sure is a revolution. So as President-elect, now Donald Trump is receiving the same classified daily intelligence briefing as President Obama receives. What does that mean? Is he prepared to handle this top-secret information? Tell us how you see
Okay, the way this works, I mean, I worked for Henry Kissinger when he would give that same classified intelligence briefing to President Nixon and Ford every morning. It's the first thing the president sees. It's a memorandum from the CIA. It's called the President's Daily Brief. The CIA says this is what's happening, like a highly classified newspaper, if you will. And the National Security Advisor goes in and says, Mr. President, this is what's happened in the last 24 hours. We're watching something in Europe. We're watching something develop in the South China Sea. So it's like when you get your morning coffee with Maria, right? Mornings with Maria, and you find out what's going on in the world of business and finance and commerce. The president finds out what's going on.
Some of this are those information on covert operations that he'll be getting?
Yeah, covert operations and you know, spy stuff. Intelligence stuff that you get from satellite signals intelligence. It's about movement of troops. It's about worries of where it's going next, what splash points are we worried about, and then what the U.S. reaction should be. There will also be recommendations in that.
KT, so much of the news the past couple of days has been about the economy and Trump and his plans going forward. How does that affect relations with China? I mean, is this trade war possibility helpful, unhelpful? How do you think about that?
That's actually the most important question to ask about the foreign policy. It's the economic policy. And what Reagan did when I worked for President Reagan, he realized first you fix the economy, then you have leverage, then you have options. You can go to other countries and say, you do this, you do that, because you're in a position of power. You negotiate not from a position of weakness, but of power. And so I think Trump was quite right to say, first thing I'm going to do is fix the economy, pro-growth, pro-jobs, and then that gives us options, whether it's dealing with the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians.
Well, first on the agenda, we'll be dealing with NAFTA, which he can act on in, I think, 6 months. And the president can impose tariffs if he sees necessary. So at least we're friendly. I mean, those are our two biggest trading partners. And so it has less national security implications, does it not, if you're talking about just redoing trade deals with Canada and Mexico.
I mean, I think it's also quite interesting that, about 3 months ago when the Mexican president met with candidate Donald Trump, and he was roundly criticized the Mexican president, like, how could you do that, the guy with the wall? Well, now it's turned out
the guy with the wall.
Two things have happened. Number one, the Mexican president has sort of acknowledged that there will be a wall. There was a little bit of debate about who's going to pay for it. The second thing that happened is the Mexican president said, we're going to build a wall, too, on our southern border. And then the third thing that's happened is everybody in Mexico is thinking, wow, is our guy smart? He got in there early. He's the first meeting president-elect Trump had was, with the Mexican president. So the world's gone around.
Yes, sure has.
You've advised the president-elect on national security. There's been so much talk about ISIS, terrorism, fears of that. But those of us in the intelligence and in the national security space know that there are some real serious strategic concerns that we need to have on a foreign policy and national defense side. What are the top priorities that you are going to tell him he needs to focus on?
Well, I think you have three priorities. One, radical Islam, and you got to deal with radical Islam, defeat radical Islam before they get their hands on nukes. Number two, we have an immediate problem with Russia because Russia's in a new Cold War. Russia has nuclear weapons. If we don't find some good way to deal with the Russians and prevent that from escalating into a crisis. And then number three, the long-range threat has always been China. The long-range threat is China wants to replace the United States as the world's dominant power. They're making their move by a military buildup and by trying to take one of the world's largest trade routes through the South China Sea as an internal Chinese lake, and they can decide who comes and who goes. So I think those would be the first three priorities that I would brief anybody on, whether it's President-elect Donald Trump or anybody. Get your priorities straight, go for those, the rest fall into place.
And in terms of the Iran deal, how easy will that be?
That's a hard one, because a lot of what we gave is up front. So the Iran deal, we gave them everything they wanted and more. Money, sanctions relief, prestige, and we tied it to nothing. We didn't tie it to behavior. We didn't say, you got to stop supporting radical Islamic movements. You got to stop, trying to kill Americans. You got to stop the nuclear missile program. We basically said, halt for about 10 years and then you can legally have nukes. Well, now that they've got everything they've wanted, there's not a whole lot of incentive for them to abide by their part of the deal.
As a starting place, maybe they should stop saying death to America.
You would think, except for that's now their campaign slogan.
Question: what of the so-called bromance with Putin?
Here's the thing about Putin that I've always thought President Obama got wrong, and Clinton got wrong, and Kerry got wrong. Putin, they humiliate Putin in public, right? Tell him, you're a third-rate regional power, end of history, long arc of history, you're in the wrong place. And yet in private, they give him everything he wants.
And then they whisper to Medvedev, I'll have more leverage after the election.
Far better to treat him respect in public, and then in private, let's have a tough negotiation.
Exactly. Katie, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Katie McFarland. Still